Welcome to Michael Park's F1, everything Formula One, but from a photographer's point of view. Round 10, the Spanish Grand Prix from Barcelona. The Spanish Grand Prix is typically the start of the European leg of the Formula One season. This is the race that teams historically have brought massive upgrade packages. It's a track that, in the past, everyone's gone to for winter testing. So it's a great venue for people to be able to calibrate what they had at the start of the season to what the new upgrades are bringing. This year, it's entirely different. First of all, there was no testing in Barcelona, so none of the teams have 2024 Barcelona data to work with. Secondly, this is round 10 of the championship. We're almost halfway through the season, so most of the teams have brought their upgrade packages to earlier events. That didn't stop Ferrari, Racing Bulls and Red Bulls from bringing significant upgrade packages this weekend. On Fridays before the first session, all teams are required to put their cars in the pit lane for inspection by the FIA and the media. It's a chance for everyone to see what the changes are, and it's a way for teams to be a bit more transparent and open. That didn't stop Red Bull from being a bit secretive about their new B-Wing. The B-Wing is a small wing at the back of the car. It's really important for aerodynamic stability and adds a lot more downforce to the back of the car, so a critical part of the car design. Red Bull had 3 team members constantly standing behind the car, which made it almost impossible to get a good photograph of this critical change. It is a bit interesting that the 3 teams that bought big upgrade packages didn't do that well relatively. Yes, I know Max did win the race, but we'll come a bit more to that later. In the past, the theory was if you had a good car in Barcelona, you'd have a great car for the rest of the season. That logic was sound when most of the tracks were traditional European race circuits, such as Silverstone, the Red Bull Ring or Hungaroring. But now the calendar is enlarged, and we've got a lot more unusual tracks like Monaco. For example, there's the new Las Vegas circuit and Baku, which all require quite different setups from the teams. So it's not necessary that the best car in Barcelona will win the championship. And in this race, even having the best car at Barcelona, starting from pole position, didn't result in the race win. Because, let's be honest, Lando Norris should have won this race. He had everything in his favour at the start. We've had 33 races at this track, and only 3 of them have been won by cars outside the top 2. And it's now 2 races in a row that McLaren should have won the Grand Prix, but have missed out to Red Bull on the finest of margins. And that really comes down to this shift. They're moving from a midfield team competing for podiums to a top team competing for race wins. Red Bull have been winning races for a number of years now, and McLaren haven't. McLaren have been fighting in the midfield, or at best fighting for podiums. And while they'll come away from this race with huge encouragement that the package that they've got is highly competitive, they need to be able to close out the wins more reliably. And you could see how upset Lando was on the podium after missing out on this win, after what has been a very difficult week for the team. On Saturday, there was a massive fire in their motorhome hospitality unit. Apparently, it was caused by an electrical fault in the kitchen, but it's completely gutted the unit. We had fire trucks and firemen trying to put the blaze out. It was all very dramatic. And this is devastating for McLaren because they've got a lot of renovation work to do before Silverstone, which is an incredibly important Grand Prix for them. What was lovely to see was the entire paddock wrap their arms around McLaren. Red Bull were there straight away offering their hospitality unit to the McLaren guests. And although Formula One is the Piranha Club, when there is a crisis, everyone in the paddock comes together. Ferrari's fortunes, on the other hand, seem to be going in the opposite direction. On top of the world in Monaco, after winning that race, they were being talked about as genuine championship contenders. But they had a disaster in Montreal, and they were probably the 4th quickest car here. And it's not so much that they're not performing well, but it's the teams around them that are really improving their game. So McLaren and Mercedes have made a huge step forward. And you can see that by the gaps in the entire field. In the first session of qualifying, all the cars, apart from Logan Sargent, were within 1 second of each other. I don't remember that closeness ever in Formula One, and it's a reason that 2024 is so exciting. 1 second around a 4.5 kilometre track is nothing at all. The margins between the teams are paper thin. We were expecting Carlos Sainz to announce his future plans this weekend, but that didn't happen. Apparently Netflix had an additional film crew just to cover the story in case it broke. Sainz is described as the bottleneck in the driver market by Kevin Magnussen. And the Spaniard is apparently choosing between a seated Williams, with hopefully a powerful Mercedes engine in 2026, but alongside a very, very competitive driver in Alex Albon, or taking a much more risky option and going to Audi, where there's expected to be a few years of pain before the team becomes competitive. Everyone thinks they will be competitive, no one knows how long that will take. So much more risky. So it's a bit of a conundrum for him. I did see his father talking to new Alpine advisor Fabio Briatore. Could there be a possible seat for Sainz in Alpine? Briatore is a very colourful character, but he's also a very controversial figure. He was banned for life from Formula One following his involvement in the Crashgate saga, which saw Alpine, which at the time was called Renault, under his leadership as team principal, order one of its drivers to deliberately crash in the Singapore Grand Prix. That crash brought out the safety car and allowed the other driver, Fernando Alonso, to go and win the race. But now his lifetime ban has been overturned and he's back working at the team where he had so much success. And there is quite a lot going on at Alpine. They've had a disastrous start to the year. There is a rumour doing the rounds that they're about to cancel their 2026 engine program and rather taking an engine from another manufacturer as a customer. Something similar to what McLaren is doing with Mercedes. And McLaren have proved that you can win races as a customer. Alpine will still make the chassis and be the title sponsor, and that will probably give them better marketing potential than being the creators of Formula One's slowest engine. We do know that there'll be at least one open seat at Alpine, with Esteban Ocon stating that he won't be driving for the team next year. Jack Doohan, the team's reserve driver, is currently the favourite to take that seat. But if a proven race winner such as Carlos Sainz were to come along, that would be very, very hard to ignore. There are technically 9 seats unsigned for 2025, and all the hopeful drivers are on tenterhooks waiting to see what Sainz will do. We did see 2 potential F1 rookies driving in F2 this weekend. Kimi Antonelli was seen in Mercedes team kit in the paddock. The super license rules have been changed to allow him to compete before he turns 18, so we might see him in a Formula One car before the summer break. Up until now, you had to be 18 before you could compete in Formula One. Antonelli turns 18 in August or September. His F2 teammate, Oliver Behrman, was able to complete a practice session for Haas. It's wildly tipped that he'll be driving for the American team next year, and I thought he had a really cool helmet for this practice session. Black and white Haas colours with his own iconic bear on the top. He only finished 19th in pre-practice, but all of this experience is invaluable for this young driver's development. Despite all of this anticipation about their Formula One futures, these 2 drivers both did have Formula 2 as a day job. And neither of them did that successfully this weekend, both failing to score points in either of the Formula 2 races. Kimi Antonelli must be really buoyed to see the progress of his potential future team, Mercedes. George got pole position in Canada, and Lewis claimed his first pole position for the team this year. You could see how happy it made him. I was shooting the start from outside turn 3. I wanted to be there to catch any carnage that might have happened on the opening lap. In Barcelona, the main straight is very, very wide, and it concertinas quite dramatically going into turns 1, 2 and 3. This means that there's often an opportunity for cars to come together and a little bit of mayhem. So you can imagine how surprised I was to see George leading the race, having started in P4. He pulled off an audacious move to go around both Max and Lando in turn 1, and it's so good seeing Mercedes part of this 4-way team battle. But with the margins being so fine and all the teams so closely matched, it was driver skill that came out on top at the end of the day. Max drove an outstanding race. There's only been a few times in the past few years where he hasn't had the fastest car, so maybe we haven't appreciated his racecraft as much as we should. But this is a really good example of what a brilliant driver he is. He really maximized those fine margins with some controlled aggression at the start, and he put in some incredibly fast laps to create that buffer between him and Lando Norris. So when Lando was coming back at him at the end of the race, Max had enough of a cushion to maintain the lead. Yes, this was another Max Verstappen victory, but boy, did he have to fight for it. And he's going to have to scrap for everything in the next 4 races. It's going to be brilliant to watch. Thank you so much for joining me for the look back at the Spanish Grand Prix. I really do hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to see some more photographs on race weekend, there's a link in the description below. And if you haven't yet, please do like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel. This is the first part of a triple header. Our next stop is Austria. So until then, goodbye.